Well, getting off the grid is slowly gathering pace. Body corporates are also making plans to get solar or other backup power. But what does the law actually allow in terms of installing such power systems? For more on this, we're now joined by property law expert Michael Wellbeloved, joining us today this morning to give us some clarity. And Michael, thank you so much for your time. Good morning to you. That's exactly the question that I'm sure many residents in complexes and estates want to know. What exactly does the law then say about installing alternative energy? That's, of course, in the sense of a solar power or a generator. What does it say?
Well, the law is actually fairly simple as it relates to the generation of power at a body corporate or at your private home. In terms of the Electricity Regulation Act, Section 7 stipulates that the government is the only body, or a licensed person is the only person that can develop electricity in South Africa, save for exceptions in terms of Section 2. Section 2 are the development of things like solar power and generators in a body corporate, which fall within an exception. So you don't really need any real licensing in order to develop alternate power supplies at your private property.
And with that being said, are we seeing more and more, complexes, property agencies, landlords installing solar panels or even backup power?
Yes. Well, I mean, I think that backup power is very attractive, especially in a tenant environment where the landlord can ensure that there's an alternate power supply. Body corporates are looking at it because of the great addition to the property value, and obviously private owners, it seems to be all the rage to install your own solar farm.
I saw a viral video, I'm not sure if you picked that up on social media, where a house was literally on fire, and the residents or eyewitnesses had said it's because it had blown up due to solar panels not being installed properly or something went wrong. And I just wonder, in that context, where you're in an estate or living in a complex and you've installed the solar panel or a backup power and the house burns on fire, what then takes place legally from neighbors, body corporates? And I can imagine that could be quite a complex situation.
In those circumstances, you would probably have a claim against the person who installed the equipment if it was done negligently. So that would be a separate inquiry. So, for example, in a body corporate environment, the trustees would have to be seen to have acted within the remit of their powers. And if they did, then the liability would fall upon the installer. So, I mean, that would be a case-dependent analysis.
But also, with that being said, I mean, I'm sure you're not a property agent who can speak on prices, but surely we're seeing an increase in terms of properties where solar panels have been installed, Michael. That's something that those who are looking into buying or even renting need to consider lately, it seems.
Well, sorry, what do you mean?
No, I'm talking about the cost, the cost of property lately due to solar panels being installed. I'm saying, even though I understand you're not a property agent, surely when you're buying property or when you're renting property, those are some of the things that you might need to look at that could affect the cost of the property lately.
Almost definitely. I think that, well, what we are seeing is sort of properties being held on sale forever because the owner wants to derive the cost of the solar that they installed from the new purchaser, who in turn doesn't really want to do that. But I think at a practical level, especially if load shedding persists in the state it is, having pre-installed solar is definitely attractive to any form of property occupant.
Yeah. When we talk about the impact of power cuts, it's been quite a negative impact, Michael, on everyone. But how would you measure that impact, particularly on residential complexes and estates?
Well, I think it's just become more expensive to do everything. So, for example, and it doesn't really speak to the issue of solar power itself, but in sort of low-cost rental housing, we identify sort of an exodus of people moving back into less expensive suburbs, less formal service settings, in circumstances in which they then have a sort of a cheaper environment in which they can use electricity, water, and the sewage services.
All right, we'll leave it there. Michael, Wellbeloved, property law expert, thank you so much for joining us this morning and giving us more insights as to the impact of power cuts, how they've been, particularly when looking into residential complexes and estates. So we're seeing definitely more landlords and I suppose estate agents installing solar panels.